Good evening and welcome to Sage Talks. This is an innovative lecture series put on by Western Governors University. I'm Dr. Miles Vogel. I am the National Director of the Information Technology College at Western Governors University and also the Interim Chief Information Officer there. It's my pleasure, obviously, to welcome you here tonight. We have a packed group here down at the Leonardo Museum. We also have about 1,500 to 2,000 people that are streaming in. We will be asking these people on premise here and also people streaming in if they have any questions. So if you're streaming in from the outside using Twitter, hashtag WGU Sage Talks, we'll entertain some of your questions. As an IT professional, I'm going to date myself. I go back to Sarbanes-Oxley, where our illustrious individual from Maryland, Representative or Senator Sarbanes, thought they were going to correct the problems that MCI and Enron took on. And that was just basically physical, and administrative and technical security. We're in a whole new wavelength today relative to cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is something WGU has recognized. We've put together a master's program in cybersecurity and information assurance, and we're also going to be rolling out a bachelor's. But tonight, we're very, very lucky. We have, and I don't want to embarrass her, a world-renowned authority in cybersecurity. And if I was to read her resume and everything she accomplished, we'd never get to the lecture. It would take me like an hour. So let me just highlight a couple sentences, and then we'll have Mischel Kwon come up on board. She has more than 32 years experience in information technology, ranging from designing to us building national level computer cybersecurity systems. She is currently serves as president and CEO of MKA Cyber, a security consulting firm specializing in technical defensive systems, which we'll all be interested in, security operations, and information assurance. Okay, really, how do we protect all our information that's basically all over the place? She's also president of the Cybersecurity Diversity Foundation. So without further ado, I'd like to invite up to the podium Ms. Mischel Kwon for the evening.
Sage Talks. I just have to say thank you so much for not calling me a graybeard. Sometimes I feel like that. We hear the word cybersecurity, and for those of us who are older, there was a time where that word cyber was kind of humorous to us because we've actually been called a lot of different things. Security professionals, security officers, information assurance, lots of different terms that we've used for what we now call cybersecurity. And I think as we've gone through time, we've begun to look at cybersecurity in a different way. And that's what I want to talk about tonight. I want to talk about what really is cybersecurity and what is really the effect of a cybersecurity attack and why should you care? Are we protecting the machines? Are we protecting the networks? Or are we protecting you? It's changed. Back in the day when I was a RACF administrator and it was optional to have authentication. RACF was an option because it was expensive to find administrators. Things have changed since then. During those periods of times, we were thinking that we were protecting machines. And we did think we were that we were identifying onesie, twosie things. We were identifying a Trojan, a worm. Today, we're identifying nefarious activity. It's much more complex than just looking for malware. Looking for malware is an antivirus job. Doing manual antivirus is not a productive job. So we have to look at what we're really doing, what we're really protecting. So tonight, I'd like you to help me do that. Are you guys game for that? Yes, awesome. First of all, you know a little bit about me now. Can I know a little bit about you? How many of you are studying some type of cybersecurity? Ooh, lots in the audience. How many of you are IT professionals? Big number. How many of you are lawyers or studying to be lawyers? Interested in law? How many of you are interested in retail? Use retail. Go shopping. How many of you have used an ATM machine? Used a credit card? Awesome. Can we all see my little slide up here? I'm sure the people online can see it better than you can. I've made a mind map. I'm trying to talk about cybersecurity and not only how it affects you or what you do or what you know, but how it's all connected and how one thing in one place can affect a lot of different things. Many of us know from just the past few days the effects of not being able to reach Twitter because of the Dyn DNS attacks, right? Many of us felt the effect, even though it wasn't an attack on us personally, it definitely inconvenienced us, correct? But if you look at the different kinds of attacks, you'll see that they affect different people and different pieces and parts of our society different ways, and that they do fit together. And we are looking at protecting all of us. Bigger things than just the machines. We'll begin to see that our machines are disposable. So let's talk about the business a little bit. Let's be a grocery store. Who wants to be the grocery store tonight? Can I have a volunteer? Someone be the grocery store. You are the grocery store, awesome. So when I say the grocery store, you have to stand up, okay? So at the grocery store has a distributor, right? They buy things. They buy things from the meat distributor who buys things from the chicken farm. So who would like to be the distributor tonight? Do I have a distributor? Awesome. When I say distributor, you have to stand up. Okay, so we have a chicken farmer, a vegetable farmer. We don't have to get carried away. Let's pick a farmer. Do I have a farmer in the audience? Awesome, great farmer. Thank you very much. Let's talk about how you pay at a grocery store. We use credit cards, right? So if we use credit cards, let's talk about the credit card company. Who's the credit card company? You're the credit card company. Who's the credit card processor? Card processor. Who is the bank? Do we have a bank? Aaron, you have to be the bank. Awesome. I actually do know people in the audience. Okay, so we're not going to cover every single arm, but we are going to get people in here. So grocery stores have coupons, and they're actually coupon companies. So who would like to be the coupon company? Coupon company, awesome. Who's the marketing company that advises the coupon company? You are the marketing company. You two are pals. That's great. Awesome. Let's talk down here. Who is the customer? Can I have like 3 or 4 customers? Customer, 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 customer. Awesome. Let's talk about the cloud provider, right? They're a company. They've got to have a cloud provider. How many of us here don't have a cloud provider? Everybody has a cloud provider, right? Who's the cloud provider? Someone very wealthy has to be the cloud provider. Awesome. Thank you, wealthy man. Okay, now we have to have an ISP. Who's the ISP? Who is the ISP? ISP, ISP. You, sir, are the ISP. Very good. And the one thing I don't have on my slide that is an important piece of this is the government. Who tonight would like to be the government? And let's pick an easy agency. Oh, awesome, I have a volunteer. Wonderful, thank you. Okay, let's make it easy tonight and not go outside of constitutional authorities. And let's make you DHS and not the NSA. Are we fair with that? Awesome. Okay, so you are DHS tonight. Wonderful. So we have a lot of players here, but where's my grocery store again? There, you're my grocery store. Can you pick a few people around you to be your lawyer, your PR person, your, pick a staff please, your IT security person, your CISO, your IT administrator? Pick a few people. Very good. And maybe your HR person. So you have a staff, okay? So point at your staff and make them stand up when you think you need them, okay? And I'll notice and I'll tell them I'll tell the audience out in the virtual world who's needed in these attacks. So now we have our players. Thank you very much for playing with me tonight. I thought it might be a lot more interesting to have a game than listening to the old woman rattle on. So, if you think about it, it is true. Even a grocery store touches almost all parts of society, right? Just from its physical function. We're not even talking about the IT systems yet. We're talking about who uses the grocery store, who does business with the grocery store, how the grocery store gets their things. This is just the physical world. This has always existed. But I think sometimes we forget that we've always been connected. And what we're going to talk about tonight is how that connection has left the physical world and moved to the virtual world. Does that make sense? So we've talked about it physically. Let's talk about it a little bit from a technological perspective. And this mind map won't help us because it's not Visio. Let's look at it and say, the grocery store has a point of sale system. That point of sale system is a collection of PCs and servers. Most point of sale systems still even use a mainframe in the back. That's a little scary. But it is true, in some retail stores, they still use mainframes. And they're moving out to using new kinds of providers. So if you look at the technology at the distribution chain, how do the grocery stores order their material, their products today? Do they go to the distributor and sit down at the distributor's desk and, they all agree on the distribution and the different things that they're going to purchase? Do they do this? I don't think they do this anymore. They go online and they order it. So they go to a website and they order from their distributor. So the distributor has a website that faces the grocery store. Does that website face the public too? Does the distributor have an IT staff? Do we have the distributor here? Where's the distributor? Where's the grocery store? So distributor, and grocery store, do you have an agreement that you will keep your systems clean and that he will not get anything from you and you will not get anything from him? You will not exchange malware. Do you have these agreements? I doubt it. I doubt it. Let's talk about the distributors. So if you look at the technology between the distributors and the farms, who's the farm? Where's the farm? Mr. Farmer? Mr. Farmer. So when they order milk, when the distributor orders milk for the grocery store, gentlemen, your farmer, and you have technology now that determines how much milk you actually produce on a daily basis. So you know if you can fulfill the order from the distributor. And the distributor orders the milk from you by calling you? By coming to your farm? No. Shoots you an email or goes online. So do we have an agreement between you and you and you that your connected systems will be clean and you won't exchange any malware? You're just a farmer. You don't even know it's a computer. It looks like a television. I don't know. Very good. You can sit down. I don't mean to make you stand up the whole night. So the grocery store on your point of sale system also has a capability of taking credit card. You take payment. I'm very proud to say that I was actually one of the first people that worked on that automated credit card transaction and approval. That's how old I am. You know, we thought that 3 minutes was a good response time for that approval. Pretty humorous, huh? I was very proud of that 3 minutes. Well, so this opens you up to bigger things because he's just a distributor and he's a farmer. He hardly uses his computer. But who's the credit card company? You're the credit card company. And who's the card processing company? You're the card processing. You talk to everyone. Who's the bank? You, sir, talk to everyone. You're very verbose. So, do you have an agreement with just gentlemen that you're going to keep your systems clean? Kind of, sort of regular. Who's DHS? DHS? Do you make sure that these people keep their systems clean? Absolutely. Kind of, sort of, maybe. Okay. And do you have an agreement with the card company, card processing company? When we did, we got in big trouble, so now we do. And do you always tell the truth? Good question. Okay, and do you even know that they have a problem? Or Mr. Grocery Store, do you even know that she talks to 2 other people and that the government watches her? No, you have no idea, right? And Mr. Farmer, did you know that DHS was involved? No idea. You can sit down. Now the coupon company. Let's talk about the coupon company for a minute. Did you know you can get these little things and you can walk around his store, and wherever you walk and whenever you buzz one of those things that you're interested in, that they keep track of that? And it's part of your loyalty card, and they know your name and address and what you shop for and what you like. And if you're gonna have a baby, kind of creepy, huh? So, Mr. Grocery Store, do you have a privacy officer? No. DHS, do you care that he doesn't have a privacy officer? Yeah. Problem. Mr. Farmer, do you know that the grocery store doesn't have a privacy officer and knows that your wife's having a baby? Kind of wild, huh? So look, we've talked about all these people in this business, but how about all of you shoppers? Customers? Customers. Did you know they were keeping track of you? Did you ask? Because they send you coupons. But did you know when they send you the coupon and you get the 10% off, that they're selling your name and address to 6 other companies? No, they didn't tell us this. Oh, they did tell us this. It was in a little fine print in a click buy. Grocery store. Do you have a lawyer? Did your lawyer review that click buy?
I'll defer to my legal counsel. You plead the fifth.
You plead the fifth. That's awesome. So as you can see, from a functionality perspective, from a technical perspective, we're all connected. And if you think about it, there's a lot more to worry about than if those connections are up. Is your farming website down? Is your distributor website down? It's almost, that doesn't really matter as much, right? You have to wonder not only what's going on technologically, but you have to wonder, not only is an adversary involved, you have to wonder, are all these people thinking about you and your information, and are they protecting it? It's a bigger picture than just the machine. So let's talk about an attack. You can sit down, sir. Make you stand up the whole time. Let's talk about an attack. There's lots of different kinds of attacks that we have to worry about in cybersecurity today. There are opportunistic attacks that take advantage of weaknesses, and there are targeted attacks. There are attacks that are advanced in nature, that have many, many steps to them, and there are click-buy fraud, There are little pieces of malware that are annoyances. There's disruptive attacks, like the one that we saw this week, the Dime DNS attack, the DDoS type of attack. There's corporate espionage, right? Mr. Grocery Store. Is there another grocery store? And does that grocery store want to know what you're doing and how many eggs you're buying from the farmer? Yeah, probably. And there's state-sponsored attacks. DHS, do you watch all of those attacks? Impossible, right? And you think, are the state-sponsored attacks just attacking the government? What's the purpose for a state-sponsored attack? Maybe that country doesn't want to spend money on that kind of research. Maybe they'd like to know how to send a rocket up to the space station as efficiently as we do. And they're not going to ask us for the design. They're going to take the design. So if you think about it, there are all kinds of attacks, even at the grocery store. The grocery store has employees. Your employees all have computers, right? Your employees are allowed to check their personal email, right? Because your lawyer said they had to. Your employees are allowed to go to Facebook, and they're allowed to tweet during the day. Because you are an unregulated source, correct?
Correct.
You are PCI compliant because you do take credit cards. But your PCI part of your network is segmented away from everything else. So only this much of your network has to be compliant, right? And how many controls are in PCI? Not a whole lot. Pretty easy to be PCI compliant, right? So if we look at this, your users are also getting emails. And they're checking these emails on their personal emails, so they're not going through your email filter. So the next thing you know, you have an infection. 67 machines on your network have malware. And that malware has reached, the person executing that malware has reached your database and is now exfiltrating data. Is this a problem? What does your lawyer say? I plead the fifth. So we have this problem where the infection is not caused, it's not intentional, it is opportunistic. The malware that you have and where you're exfiltrating to, they don't even care about your data, but they've attacked you. It's opportunistic. There's also opportunistic malware that's not just stealing your information, but is stealing the personal identifiable information of your employees. So you have to not only worry about protecting your databases, but you have to worry about protecting your employees from personal harm. So that makes the job of a cybersecurity person or a CISO in an organization even more complex, because you're having to worry about all the little things your employees do, as well as protecting your organization. And it is important to protect our employees as much as it is to protect your organization. In addition to that, you probably have a union, and it's probably in your union contract that you're protecting your employees. Right, Mr. Lawyer? Yes. So it gets more and more complex as we go through. So that's just an opportunistic attack. Let's talk about corporate espionage. You probably use Salesforce or some other kind of CRM to keep track of your sales and even keeping track of your market. What happens if this CRM vendor has an attack and loses your competitive information?
Puts us at a disadvantage.
Puts you at a disadvantage, and your lawyer's back involved again. You're going to sue them. That's right. And you're also going to run the incident, right? Many of us think that incidents are run by the security people and the technical people that are in our organizations, and that we're very interested in the packets and we're very interested in the reversal of the malware. That's just a tiny part of it. Because once you have an incident, your lawyer now becomes involved. And your lawyer usually hires another lawyer, a cyber lawyer. And that lawyer usually hires a PR firm, and on and on and on. And it becomes very complex. Why does it become that complex? It becomes that complex because we're not protecting the machines. This isn't about the machine. The machine is disposable. If this attack affects your profit by even 10%, I guarantee you the IT at the grocery store isn't 10% of your profit. You could throw the entire network out, every machine and every register, and it probably would be still less than what the effect of the attack had. So in those circumstances, it is important to get other lawyers and PR firms and other people involved, because the value of securing your infrastructure becomes more and more important. When you hear that people are spending a percentage of their IT budget on security, it should make you shake your head. Because it's not about the machines. It's not about the people who take care of the machines. It's about protecting that grocery store, keeping it profitable. There's another piece we didn't talk about, and that is the reputational damage of an attack. So you've had an attack. It wasn't even an intentional attack. It was an attack that came in through one of your employees' emails, and it exfiltrated data. It just so happened to exfiltrate the data to one of your competitors. And now the New York Times picks it up, and there's an article about the security on your networks. Mr. Grocery Store, your lawyer is a busy man. I hope you're paying him well. But once this gets in the news, then the trail starts to get hotter, and people question if the credit card companies are involved, right? Credit card company, and the credit card company then says, is the credit processor involved? And the credit processor says, is the bank involved? And the bank says, oh no, this was just their users. And then DHS gets involved and says, we need to come in and take a look, right? And then your lawyer is back involved again. It's a complex situation. It's much more complex than it ever was. So if you think that you're studying just cybersecurity, think again. You are studying something technical. You are learning how to code in Python. But it's good to understand the bigger picture and how this affects the world. So we have to think, okay, the attacks affect everyone. What do we do to prevent this? And how do we prevent it? And how do we help each other? Or do we stand by ourselves and say, no, my castle is protected. I have a moat. Can we have moats anymore? We can't have moats. We have to talk to each other. Our customers demand it. They demand faster than 3-minute credit checks. They don't even want to see the credit check, right? They demand that when they do a credit check and they're over their bank limit, that you talk to the bank, lickety-split, and get their credit raised, right? They demand that, like this. So the market has changed. And the reliance on these computers and the processing that these computers has changed. And they want to do it on 60,000 different kinds of devices. They want to log on from any network. They don't want to authenticate, because that's a pain. They want to use their thumb. How do you secure that? How does this work? This is becoming a hard problem. And the problem's not just a technical problem, right? Technical solutions are only implementations of policy and law, because no one's going to do something just because. They're going to do it because they have to, because there's a regulation that says they must, because public opinion says you should, because your reputation is affected if you don't. And that's all related to policy and law. So we have to make sure we look at these things and not just look at them in ways in which we protect our data, but why are we protecting our data? And what are we going to do with that data? And how are we allowed to handle that data? How long are we allowed to keep that data? And how are we allowed to correlate that data with other things and sell those results to other companies so that we can tell that your wife, Mr. Farmer, is pregnant? This is all complex. So protecting ourselves is going to need a lot of different kinds of professionals. We're going to need, yes, Mr. Lawyer, many, many lawyers, many specialized lawyers. We're going to need privacy professionals. Those are one of the hardest jobs. And those privacy professionals have broad and different backgrounds. Lawyers, philosophy majors, ethics people, all different kinds of backgrounds for privacy people. So we're going to need lots of different kinds of people. We're also going to need to know ways to detect this. How do we know this is happening? How do we know who takes what and where they put it? Are we watching our networks? Are we detecting what the malware and what the people who execute the malware on our systems are doing? It's important to understand that they don't execute the malware to take the stuff. The malware execution is so they can get in our systems and act as if they are us. Once they're in our systems and they escalate their privileges, then they can get anywhere and they can do anything, and they look as if they're your administrators. That's really hard to detect. So looking at managed SOC service providers like myself, looking at some people have their own internal SOCs where they monitor and detect their networks, relying on our ISPs to do some of this monitoring, detecting, and cleansing on the bigger internet layer. These are all actions that we hope are happening everywhere so that we know that the attacks are happening. But we know that a good portion of our internet networks don't monitor their networks and don't have any security controls on their networks, even today. There are lots of companies that stand up quickly and deploy their technology. If you buy a computer today, is it secure? What does secure mean? I doubt it. Does it have a password on it? You have to set the password. Does it care if your password is password? No, it doesn't care. So when you get a computer, no matter what brand it is, it doesn't come to you secure. That actually takes an action today. So if we look at the things that we're doing as cybersecurity professionals, we are monitoring our networks. We are looking at policy and law. We are understanding how to secure those boxes and the settings we have to put on them to make them secure. We are looking at how we secure the infrastructure, how we secure the bigger WANs, how we secure the internet itself. There are lots of professionals that do this kind of thing. And it's important to look and divide up the different actions that these people have to take. We need to understand threat intelligence. What's threat intelligence? Does anyone know what threat intelligence is? That's a really windy road to go down. But if you just look at threat intelligence as how these attacks, who would attack your network, what actions they would take to do that, and how vulnerable your network is to those attacks, what the risk is for those attacks. This is the most complicated problem we have because we have that problem of DHS. Do you share all of the information of cyber attacks throughout the United States with the general public? No, you don't. Do you do it with the grocery store? No, you don't. Or the farmer? No, you don't. With the bank and the card processor and the credit card company? Kind of, sort of when you want to, right? So threat intelligence is hard. But can we buy it? Yep. Is it good? Can we curate it? Can we figure it out ourselves? Yes. Can we understand what's happening in attacks and bake it at home? Is the intelligence that comes from the attacks that happen on your network valuable? Absolutely. Understanding the attacks on your own network and understanding and storing that threat intelligence, internal threat intelligence, is important. So yet another function that our cybersecurity team is going to have to do. Mr. Grocery Store, do you have a threat intelligence analyst? No, that's really expensive because how much do you spend on cybersecurity each year?
Small percentage.
$75K. What does that buy us? Do you have a CISO? No. Do you have 3 college interns? Yeah. So life can be kind of scary when that's what you're working with. We also have to be able to detect. We talked about detection a little bit. We talked about MSSPs and SOCs. How much does it cost to monitor a decent-sized network? Say you have 65 servers, a cloud presence, you have 2 websites, about $2 million. Do you spend $2 million on detection on your network? No, can't afford that. So it's complicated. Vulnerability management. So if we're saying that there are attacks that are opportunistic, that attack us just because we're vulnerable, do we make sure that those vulnerabilities are taken care of? How many people would it take to do vulnerability management on the grocery store's network? Maybe 3? What do 3 people cost? About $1 million? Do you have $1 million to spend on vulnerability management? And that's not even including the tools, right? Right. So far, we have a threat intelligence analyst, a SOC, a vulnerability management person that we can't afford. Let's talk about remediation a minute. You have had this attack. It is pervasive throughout all of what you're connected to. Do you have IT personnel who can remediate the problem, re-image the machines, replace all of the servers, talk to all the people you're connected to, and report back to DHS that you're clean now? So you're going to need your lawyer a lot, right?
Yes.
So if you think about it, this is a really hard problem. And this is a really interesting career field because it's a really broad career field with lots of different functions and lots of different jobs. It's not just the guy that reads the packet. It's not just the guy that can scan a network. It's not just the guy that can write in Python. It's not just the lawyer. It is a PR firm. It is a policy person. It is a government liaison. There are many functions in cybersecurity. And who would think that that is cybersecurity? Did you all think that was cybersecurity? You thought that was firewalls and IDS signatures, right? It's much more complex. And we didn't even talk about that. I didn't even talk about your internet connection. So if you think about the complexity of the grocery store, it gets even more complex when we move to the card processor. Because the card processor not only has PCI, not only has Sarbanes-Oxley, but also has Graham GBL, right? And they also have their own internal processes. You're probably ISO compliant. And then you move that down to the banks, and the banks have similar things. And you also, banks belong to the ISACs, so you have to have someone who handles that exchange of information. And you do have a SOC, and you have a 24/7 SOC, and you have about $6 million worth of software that your SOC uses, correct? And you have a follow the sun methodology. So you have a SOC in Japan, and a SOC in the US, and a SOC in Australia, right? How much does that cost? And who pays for that? We all pay for that. But did they lose your credit card? Has anyone not had a credit card loss from theft, from fraud? You've never had your credit card replaced. Wow. You don't shop online much, do you? There you go. Very good. And this brings us to another very interesting part of this cybersecurity world, and that I would be remiss in not talking about. That is, what would we do as users, as the public, to help the problem? Because in the end, we cause it. We're the ones that are surfing and clicking and checking our email and watching YouTube videos at work, right? The best way to protect our networks, I've heard very prominent people say this, is to get rid of our users. That's crafty. But we can't do that, right? Because our users are our workforce, and it's important to let our users be happy and be able to use these things. So it's October. It's Cybersecurity Awareness Month. And DHS, yes, I'm going to give you a plug because it is a good thing. We do have to remember as individuals, we play a part in this game. We have to be conscious of what we do and don't do at work. For no other reason, if you don't want to be altruistic and you don't want to say, I want to keep my corporate network clean, you can say, I don't want my boss to see what I'm surfing. But it is good to be conscious that clicking on links, going to sites that have a lot of traffic and could carry malware is a detrimental thing to our networks, and we have to be careful. It is important, because passwords are so vulnerable, that we use a complex password, that it doesn't have a word in it, that maybe we use a generator to create it, that it has upper, lower, special character, number, that it is sufficient in length. Some people say 8, some people say 15, some people say 12, so that it's sufficient that it meets the policy of your organization. This is important. And as you are a user and you have a password on 50 million different sites, that you don't use the same password on all of those public sites and your email at work and your computer at work, right? Let's be a little bit more complex than that. Don't write it down and leave it under your keyboard. Don't have a notebook that has all your scribbling in it. Create an algorithm so that you remember it. Use a password safe, right? These are things that we have to remember as individuals. Make sure your browser's healthy. Make sure you have your privacy settings set not only on your browser, but on your social media, so that the whole world doesn't know where you are when you're away from your kids. That's important. Patch your machines. Patch, 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 patch. And yes, it's a pain, patch your third-party software. It's very important. Third-party software is the #1 vulnerability that's exploited on your computer. It's not always your operating system. So patch your third-party software. And do watch what you post. Be careful with social media. Make sure those settings in the privacy section are good. Make sure you don't post things that you'll regret posting tomorrow or next year or the next time you go for a job. Because there is no privacy in social media. And we all have to remember that. So I hope you enjoyed our grocery store event tonight. And I hope that elaborates a little bit more about the broad sweeping touch of cybersecurity. And that we're not here to protect these machines. The machines are actually disposable. We are here to protect you. We're here to protect your personally identifiable information. We're here to protect your businesses. We're here to protect the government. We're here to protect bigger things than the machines and the networks. So thanks for listening to me. Are there questions tonight? Would you like to come join me for questions? Do we have questions from the audience?
I've got a question. I'm not an IT professional, but I'm an extensive user of IT. I spend my entire work day on a computer, going to various places that are presumably protected by the organization that I work for. And so there's only a certain amount of control that I exert over the security of the systems that I use. A lot of this that you're saying is common sense, but since I'm not an IT professional, I don't know what you mean when you say patch your machine.
Well, what I was talking about patch your machine is at home, your personal devices. When they tell you that it's time for an update and that update needs to be installed, update your machine. It's a good thing. Hopefully at your organization, your IT department is patching your machine. We'll just hope for that, okay? That's good. Good.
But that also means things like put a security password, a lock on my Wi-Fi system.
Yes, it does.
Things like that.
Yes, it does.
Okay, so those are things I have control over, and those make sense.
Within your home.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So I trust the IT department at Western Governors University.
Yes, and they can tell us that they are very
patching
secure.
everything for me.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. And actually, universities have really gotten better at security because in the early days, back when we were really old, that's where the attacks first started. And originally, the attack bouncing off points and the places they were using to move the malware around and collect the data were actually university systems. So universities were some of the first organizations to really embrace security programs. And think about the users the universities have. You know, they have the young kids that spend their whole life on the internet, and you have to be careful. But there's lots of things you can do at home and as a individual to protect your own things at home. I mean, we were talking about at lunch. You have to be concerned about what Alexa is listening to, right? There are things now that we buy and that we want. We have to be concerned about the security around those devices and those things. Are there more questions in the audience? Yes, we have one here.
I have a Twitter question. How can consumers get accurate information about security or privacy vulnerabilities in devices they use?
Oh, this is a challenge. It is not a requirement to disclose. It is a regretful thing if something happens and they knew about it and they didn't disclose. There are legal implications for that. Some vendors are wonderful and come right out and out themselves right away and tell you how they're going to correct it and are very proactive. We saw this in the Dyn DNS attack this week. Several of the IoT vendors came out right away saying, we are patching our stuff, we do know there are vulnerabilities, and we are taking responsibility for that and we're making it better. There were others that were silent. So it is still a very young place that we're in, where, and we were talking about this today as well at lunch, laws are not necessarily cyber specific. We're still trying to connect physical law to things that happen in the virtual world. And sometimes that doesn't work. And regulation sometimes exists, sometimes it doesn't, and often doesn't work. So that's a very complex question, and we don't have a good answer to it yet. Yes?
What do you think about the direction of the Internet of Things? Is that going to require a new cybersecurity, a new level of awareness, or even laws? Or where do you see the future of things as far as cybersecurity goes?
Well, I think we're there already. I don't think there's anything about later. I think we're there already. How many of us already have Internet of things, or even know that we have Internet of things? Many of us have them and don't even know that we have them. I don't think it's been tested yet as to whether or not the physical laws actually cover us for those events that would happen. And if you think about law and you think about protections, you have to think about criminal activity, liability, privacy breaches, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. So it's a whole new world, and we're late to the party. Asking our public to secure their Internet of Things when they don't even know they have an Internet of thing is kind of backwards in thought. And one of the things we were also talking about today is how do we get to a more automated way where we're securing them before they have to do that? When is it going to be just a reputational push that makes our vendors do that? And you're seeing some of that today in some of these vendors that are coming forward and doing the right things really quickly. But I think we're early to that game and late to the party, for sure.
Do we have anybody else internally wants to ask questions, or over our Twitter feed? Do we have any questions from there? Okay. No, go ahead.
This is another Twitter question. How did you get started in cybersecurity, and what advice would you give to someone who's trying to break into it?
That's a really good question. And actually, it's really easy to get started in cybersecurity today because we need so many people. I was actually originally an IT person. I started as an assembler programmer. I did a lot of different kinds of work. I did operating system programming, I did network programming, I did administration, I did some, what at that time was called security work that I had no idea I was a security person. And I reached a point, I did my life backwards. I was a geek first, and then I went back to school and got my degrees when I was older. And when I went back for my degrees, I went back because I felt like I hit a ceiling and I needed those degrees to be more than that girl in the middle of the night sleeping on the disk drive and reloading my programs on the big mainframe. That really dated me, that hurt. But I looked back at my career and I saw that it touched almost every piece of IT. And I said, you know what? I think that's a security career. And I got a scholarship from, thank you DHS, from the government. And it was a cyber core scholarship. And I got my undergrad and my master's, and then I went to work for the government to pay them back for paying for my college. So I did my life backwards. I've been in the technical aspect of things. That doesn't mean you have to. There, as you heard from tonight, there's so many different aspects of cybersecurity that you can go into, whether it's law or whether it's policy or whether it's ethics or even IT, whether it's actual monitoring of networks or deploying security architecture, whether it's application security or database security, there are millions of different career paths in cybersecurity today and many different ways of getting there. So whether it's degrees or certifications or just going and getting an internship, lots of entry points.
So you're in consulting now, and I keep hearing about companies like grocery stores that can't afford the $2 million a year for their security. As I get into the field, do I need to worry about companies not having the money, or do I need to stay away from certain industry? In your experience, which companies have the deep pockets that can afford the talent?
Unfortunately, the companies that have the most resources are the companies that have been hit. The companies who are hiring more people are the companies that have had incidents and public incidents. And there are a lot of them. So there are a lot of jobs. And more, we are seeing companies doing the right thing and actually allocating money and justifying the money so that they don't become some of the other people they've seen in the press. So it's not hard to find a company that needs cybersecurity help. It really isn't. And even though there's some companies that don't do it and can't afford it, there are lots of other companies, because every company needs it, that have jobs. For sure. And the federal government always needs people. And the state governments.
What are your takes on things like KeyPass or LastPass? Are they a good move, or are they too much of a security risk?
Well, I have to say that I do use a password safe. And I like that the password safes generate passwords that are more complex. And I frankly can't remember all of these passwords. I'm way too old for that. But I will say that there is a concern about safety, security of those password safes. And if you look at the attacks that happened on some of those companies that I won't actually point to, it was the implementation. So we have to worry about how we implement even our security products and the security that we do, making sure that the administrative passwords are changed often and that there's 2 form factor authentication on those passwords. So sure, if you're going to have a password safe and you're going to have an already used password on your password safe, and you're going to have used that in social media, and you're not going to have 2 form factor authentication, don't put your stuff in that password safe, right? But if you're going to have 2 form factor authentication, you're going to take all the steps to protect that, and then you're not going to have that problem of being the person that has the same password on your Facebook page as you have on your administrative network. Then yes, the password safe is a good thing. So you kind of have to weigh how you do it and your risk and decide if that's what you want to do.
Anything else? Anything from Twitter? Great, great.
Active Twitter.
That's good.
Lots of tweeting.
You're the Twitter person? That's fine.
Yes. I have 2 in a row in case
Okay.
anybody else doesn't. Do you believe that cryptocurrencies and blockchain-based technologies will help solve a lot of these issues?
There's no panacea. And encryption is not the answer. Because it's really fun when the adversary is yours, your crypto on you. So no, it's not the answer. There's no one answer. That's not to say it doesn't contribute to the answer. It contributes to the answer, but it's not the answer.
Should ISPs be responsible for limiting DDoS by blocking the IPs they do not own or stopping repetitive traffic?
Now I have to ask the lawyer to answer these questions, or DHS. It's complex. That's a really hard answer. We talked about this also at lunch today, of what is legal for them to do and not legal for them to do. And I think that's still being determined. And then we also have to look at what do people pay for and what do they sell? Because all of these ISPs sell DDoS service. So is that ethical? You're being DDoSed. I'm not going to stop it because you didn't pay for it. I don't know. Is that legal? Lots of things for us to think about and lots of things for us to solve.
I'm in the IT security program at WGU. So I'm trying to learn as much as I can about the world of IT security and what different career paths I can go to. And this kind of goes along with that Twitter question. I guess, what are like some specific activities that I could do like in my free time to help me practice and see like, I guess like white hat hacking or become what a CEH does or something like that. Like, what are some activities I could practice that would help me?
So when I interview people, one of my questions is a funny question. And that question is, tell me what you do when you DDoS. Learning about how your systems work, how the networks work, and thoroughly understanding your protocols, very important. Just teaching yourself things that you may not learn in a course because they're too granular, that you would learn if you had a path where you were a system administrator or you were someone who jockeyed firewalls. Learn as much about the network itself and how it operates, how a website operates, as you can. There are things, depending upon what field you're going to go into in cybersecurity, because it's a really broad field, so it's a hard question to answer. But if you are going into pen testing, there are certain things that you can practice and try at home that are open source and you can do. I really suggest that you get an internship, even if you do it for free. A lot of these places do take interns. But having real network experience and understanding the processes that go to making changes on networks and securing networks is invaluable. So not just stuff that you can do at home, read at home. I do advise everyone who likes to play at home to be careful because some of the things you are doing may not be legal. And it'd be really awful to hurt your career because you broke into a government network and you shouldn't have, and you didn't know you were doing it. It actually happens. So as you're playing at home, be careful. Take yourself off the network and isolate yourself and do it to your own boxes. And get an internship. Go to conferences. There are lots of different ways. Go to training courses. There are lots of different ways that you can educate yourself. Can we take one more, or are we done?
How about one more question, and then we kind of have to wrap it up?
If I could just add to that too, because there's also, at the conferences, like you mentioned, there's like capture the flag events that you can do. I remember at my other college, they had a capture the flag event that you compete with other universities. Those are good.
There are lots of places you can do that.
And there's like cyber warfare training centers, like the Arizona Cyber Warfare Training and Michigan Cyber Warfare. They actually set up vulnerable machines and vulnerable data centers, and you can actually test out all this stuff.
That's great.
Well, I'd like to thank Michelle for her time and effort, and really